in today's Access Health CT Audit Committee meeting. So I will ask if we can begin the recording for purposes of sharing this and making it publicly available.
And I was so for House Dems, I started.
And I think Matt Brockman may have joined us. Thanks. Hey, Matt.
Hello.
Long night. I was surprised you were able to join us. Thank you for doing that.
I made it.
So I'll officially call this meeting to order. It is now 10 o'clock on Wednesday, November 9th. This is the Audit Committee of the Access Health Connecticut. My name is Claudio Gualtieri. I'll ask members of the Audit Committee to introduce themselves so we can confirm that we do in fact have a quorum. And a reminder that when you do speak, if you can remember to just re-identify yourself, it helps for people following along on the recording and for minute-taking purposes. So with that, maybe Grant Ritter, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll move through all the members of the committee?
Okay, Grant Ritter present.
CC Woods.
CC Woods present.
Thank you. Caroline Zambetti on behalf of Commissioner Nancy Navarrete from DMS.
Caroline Zambetti present.
Thank you. Matthew Brockman.
Matt Brockman present.
Thank you. And obviously the chair, Claudio Gualtieri.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, so we have this is Claudio again, and we do have a quorum, so we'll move on to our agenda for today. I'll first ask that if the Access Health CT staff could just briefly introduce themselves, and also our guest speakers for today, which are representatives from Clifton, Larson, Allen.
Good morning, Claudio, Mr. Chair. James Michel, CEO of Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning, Daryl Jones, Finance Director, Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning, Susan Rich-By, Director of Legal and Governmental Affairs at Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning, Glenn Jurgen, Director of Human Resources, Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning, Pam Rowe, Controller at Access Health Connecticut.
Good morning, Marcin Olszewski, Governance Specialist, Access Health Connecticut.
And our Clifton, Larson, Allen representatives.
Good morning, Nicoleta McTighe, Principal with CLA Clifton, Larson, Allen.
Morning, everyone. David Flint, also with Clifton, Larson, Allen.
Great. So that brings us to the next. We completed the welcomes and introductions part of our agenda. We'll move now to public comment. We did not receive any notice of public comment or written public comment in advance of today's meeting. I'll just pause for a sec in case anyone is joining us here wishing to make a comment. Seeing none on the public comment, we'll close that portion of our agenda and then turn to the first vote of today's meeting, which is a review and approval of the June 9th regular meeting minutes. Those were circulated in advance on Monday. Marcin, thanks for doing that. Hopefully all had a chance to review them. Is there a motion? Can I request a motion to approve?
Move to accept the minutes. This is Grant Ritter.
Grant Ritter, thank you. Is
Seconded,
there a second?
CC Woods.
Motion was seconded by CC Woods. Any discussion on the matter? Edits or corrections on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll take a vote to approve the minutes as they were submitted for the June 9th regular meeting.
Claudio Gualtieri.
Aye.
Grant Ritter.
Yes.
CC Woods.
Yes.
Caroline Zambetti.
Yes.
And Matthew Brockman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. I imagine that was approved unanimously, right?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Thanks. So we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which I will turn it to Susan Rich-By to introduce our guest speakers for purposes of walking through a presentation on the audited financial statements for FY 2022. Susan?
Thank you, Claudio. Susan Rich By again. And today we have Nicoletta McTighe and David Flint here from Clifton Larson and Allen. And they are our independent auditors, and they will be presenting for FY22 the financial statements and also the programmatic audit. And these are requirements under both state and federal law that we have these performed every year by an independent auditor. So I will turn it over to Nicoletta and David. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning. Nicoletta McTighe with Clifton Larson Allen. Next slide, please. So today we will go over the terms of engagement, executive summary, which will be the audit results, a couple slides on the financial highlights. David will go over programmatic audit, required communications, and some upcoming GASB pronouncements. And in one of our slides is our contact information in case there are any follow-up questions from the members of the audit committee. On the next slide, I have listed the terms of engagement. So we were engaged to do an audit of the financial statement as a part of the audit to express an opinion as to whether the basic financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, or GAAP. To report on the internal control over financial statements and compliance with provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements in accordance with government auditing standard. And that report is known as Yellow Book Report. In addition to that, we're engaged to perform a programmatic audit based on the requirements set forth by CMS in accordance with Title 45 and Part 155. What was new this year is that we were engaged to perform a federal single audit. And as part of the federal single audit, we are required to express in relation to opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and express an opinion on compliance related to major federal awards. Next slide, please. So as a result of our audit, we expressed an unmodified opinion on basic financial statement for the year ending June 30th, 2022. What was new this year is that GASB 87 leases was implemented, and in the financial statements in our report, there is an emphasis of matter paragraph to just alert the readers that Access Health implemented GASB 87 leases. But that does not modify our opinion. It's just more for purposes of additional information. Under Government Auditing Standard Report, there were no internal control findings, so which means that that was clean also. And there were no compliance findings on the programmatic procedures performed. David, further down in the presentation, will go over the procedures that we perform and the results. As far as the federal single audit goes, it is due on March 31st, 2023. It's well underway to be tested, and it's processed and will be completed and filed by way before the due date, based on how the audit is going right now. Next slide. So in this slide and the next, I have some information, summary of both years, 22-21 comparative. The first slide here is statement of net position. As you can see under column 2021, it says restated, and that was because of implementation of GASB 87 leases. So as the GASB 87 was effective for June 30th, year end 2022, but since Access Health has comparative financial statements, the information has to be reported for all comparative periods. So that's why 2021 was restated to add that information as GASB 87 would have been applicable for that fiscal year. So the restatement is not an error or anything else. It's just an adoption of new accounting pronouncement. As a result of adopting GASB 87, the capital assets and the lease liability were increased by by a net of $859,000. So in order to, as I said, have those statements comparatively correct, the GASB 87 was retroactively implemented for fiscal year 21. The net position for fiscal year 21 ended at $35.4 million, which is about $800,000 higher than the net position of prior year. I just want to add one thing, that GASB 87 implementation did not affect the total net position in the prior year. It just affected the as I said, the capital assets and lease liabilities, so the assets and liabilities in the financial statement, which they netted to zero. In the next slide, there's a statement of revenues, expenses as changing in net position. Again, for comparative 22 versus 21, and 21 was restated to take out the expenditures for payments that were made for rent payments and lease payments, and they were now capitalized as capital assets in the books to be amortized over the year. So expenditure, instead of being reported on the year then it's paid, is being reported on the year when that is being amortized. So as you can see, change in net position for the current year was an increase of $808,000. Total revenues went down by $854,000, and that was mostly attributable to marketplace assessment, which was an expected decrease. And that decrease has been the trend for the last 3 fiscal years. Intergovernmental revenue, the $866,000 that is new for the year, it's a grant, a federal grant that is subject to the federal single audit, and that's what we are going to perform an audit on that number. So there will be issued a specific separate report on that. As far as the expenses go, they went slightly down by $69,000 to end up at a net position of $35.4 million versus $34.5 million in the prior year. Next slide. I'll turn it over to David. I'll go over the work we did related to programmatic audit.
Good morning, everybody. Again, David Flint with CLA. So our responsibility was to perform a programmatic audit on Access Health's compliance with 45 CFR Part 155, which deals specifically with insurance exchanges. Based on the criteria outlined in Part 155, we have developed audit procedures to address the following areas: general standards, general functions, eligibility determinations, enrollment functions, appeals of eligibility determinations, exemptions, SHOP, which is Small Business Health Options Program, certification of qualified health plans, oversight and program integrity standards, state flexibility, and quality reporting standards. I'd like to draw your attention to those 4 bolded subparts, which were identified by the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services as the core functions of marketplace operations. When we developed our audit procedures, we included all of these subparts, but we were reporting specifically on these 4 core functions. Next slide, please. So we're happy to report that we issued an unmodified opinion on compliance with respect to Access Health's compliance with 45 CFR Part 155. We do not have any findings to report or any additional recommendations. Next slide, please. So as your auditors, there are some required communications that we have to communicate to you who have been identified as those charged with governance. So management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. As Nicoletta mentioned before, management implemented GASB statement number 87, which deals with leases and specifically getting the lease liability and assets associated with those leases onto the balance sheet. The financial statements also include some significant accounting estimates that are based on management's knowledge and experience about both past and future events. Significant estimates for fiscal year 22 were the estimated useful life of capital assets, which impacts the calculation of depreciation expense, as well as the incremental borrowing rate, which is used to calculate that right of use asset and lease liability, which are associated with that GASB 87 lease standard. We did not encounter any significant difficulties in dealing with management. Management did not identify and we did not notify them of any uncorrected financial statement misstatements. There were no disagreements with management. We will request management to make certain representation in a management representation letter. Next slide, please. To the best of our knowledge, management did not have any other consultations with other independent accountants. We have various discussions with management prior to engagement as auditors. However, these discussions occurred in the normal course of our professional relationship, and our responses were not a condition of our engagement. We did not have any significant findings or issues. And finally, in regard to the supplementary information included in the audited financial statements, which is management's discussion and analysis, as well as the budgetary schedule of expense, we compared the information within to the underlying accounting records that were used to prepare the financial statements. However, we do not express an opinion on that particular information. Next slide, please. So this is just a listing of the incoming GASB standards over the next 3 years. In the middle of the page, we have highlighted the one that will be applicable to Access Health, which is Statement 96. This is kind of a piggyback statement off of the lease statement that got implemented this year. However, Statement 96 deals specifically with software subscriptions. The next slide will have our contact information. We encourage you guys to reach out to us if you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns. Does anyone have any questions for us?
This is Claudio. I don't have any questions. I just want to pause for a second. If any members of the committee want to use the raise hand function to ask questions, now would be a time to do so. And we'll entertain questions on both the audited financial statements that Nicoletta went through and the programmatic audit that David just went through. All right, seeing no questions then, I will ask if I can have a motion for accepting. We'll take this as 2 different votes. We'll take first the 2020 FY 2022 Access Health Connecticut audited financial statements. We'll entertain a motion from the committee to approve the statements that were just presented. Do I have that motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, Grant Ritter. Motion to accept.
Motion to accept. A second?
Carleen Zambetti, I'll second.
Thank you. The motion is properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to approve the FY 2022 Access Health Connecticut audited financial statements as presented.
Claudio Gualtieri,
Yes?
Grant Ritter,
Yes.
CC Woods,
Yes.
Caroline Zambetti,
Yes.
and Matthew Brockman.
Yes.
Thank you. The
All
vote
right,
was unanimous.
Great. So that the motion has carried. Thank you. We'll move to the second item that we want to take up and vote on, which is the programmatic audit report that was also just presented. Do I have a motion to accept the FY22 programmatic audit as presented?
Yes, certainly.
Ritter?
Grant Ritter, motion to accept.
Thank you, Grant. A second on the motion?
Second, CC Woods.
Cece, thank you for seconded. The motion is properly moved and seconded. Any questions on the programmatic audit that we just heard presentation on? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote for approval.
Claudio Gualtieri,
Yes?
Grant Ritter,
Yes.
CC Woods,
Yes.
Caroline Zambetti,
Yes.
and Matthew Brackman. Mr. Brackman? Thank you. 4 votes in favor.
All right, the motion carries. That's great. So next, we'll take it to the next item on our agenda. And for purposes of that, this is a review of the SMART tool, the state-based marketplace annual reporting tool. I'll turn it back to Susan Richby for a brief presentation. Susan?
Thank you very much, Claudio. And this is the third audit or report, if you will, of these types of annual reports that Access Health is required to do. And I think Claudio explained the acronym SMART stands for State-Based Marketplace Annual Reporting Tool. Under the ACA, state-based marketplaces are required to keep accurate accounting of all activities, receipts, and expenditures, and to monitor and report on those to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and to complete an annual report and engage an independent auditor to perform independent financial and programmatic audits to ensure compliance with the regulations and standards, as Nicoletta and David mentioned. So back in 2015, CMS developed this handy SMART tool for exchanges to use to combine all of these requirements into one place to make it easier. The SMART has 4 components: eligibility and enrollment, financial and programmatic audits, which we just reviewed, program integrity, and then finally the attestations of completion. So for plan year 2021, these are on calendar year basis versus the financial and the programmatic, which were just completed for the fiscal year basis. Access Health filed its SMART for plan year 2021 on May 31st, 2022. And then on September 23rd, 2022, CMS issued its SMART Summary of Observations and Action Items for Access Health Connecticut. And they did not identify any items for this SMART filing for 2021. So it was a clean letter that we received back, which is always great news. So I'll pause if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
That's great. That brings us to the end. This is Claudio again, and this brings us to the end of our formal agenda for today. I just want to take a quick point of personal privilege to publicly thank both Susan Richby and Daryl for taking time to walk through, prep with me, and answer all my questions so that we're all informed and we're making sure that we're giving the subcommittee the best information and the best presentation. We made very effective use of our time today and are concluding this meeting ahead of schedule, and it's a testament to the great work of the Access Health team and especially James
Mr. Chairman,
and the rest of you.
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, I just want to extend my deepest appreciation to this committee, that your leadership and guidance in helping us to stay on track, but also to the leadership team at Access Health, our staff, who continually do amazing work, and so that these audits, all 3 audits, are very clean, because we stay on top of things and report to the board on a regular basis. So the audit result is a reflection of the amazing work that the team continue to do every day, and this all happens under the leadership of this committee, and the finance committee, and the board. Thank you very much for the continued work and support to you, Mr. Chairman, in this committee, and also to the entire staff at Access Health Connecticut.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you, James. So with that, I will now just entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yes, motion to adjourn by Grant. I second James's comments there about the audit.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Grant. Is there a second on the motion to adjourn?
CC Woods, second.
Thank you, CC. All those in favor of adjournment,
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, we have to do a roll call. I apologize. We have a roll call. Claudio Gualtieri.
Aye.
Grant Ritter.
Yes.
CC Woods.
Yes.
Caroline Zambetti.
Yes.
and Matthew Brockman.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great day. Bye.